Hello, viewers, and welcome to another episode of Fleet Action Report. This is going to be episode 14, titled Crafting and Tribulations. I'm Nikodas,
I'm Grebog.
and we're glad to have you with us today.
Yes. So what have you been up to in the week?
I have been working on my reputation still, trying to get the rest of them to tier 6. I currently have 6 of them, and along with that, there's a vanity item that comes with every reputation. It's basically a skin for your ship. It's a Vanity Shield that changes the appearance. I'm currently using the Omega Task Force one, but there's a lot of really fun ones in here. As you can see on my screen right now, I'll bounce through them real quick here. A lot of greens. They really like those greens.
There's another good reason to go getting your tier 6 reputations, and that would be the discount. It cuts the marks, the lithium, all down in half, and you can do it account wide. So if you have an alt, once you've gotten 1 tuned to tier 6, all other captains you have don't even have to wait to tier 6 to get to the whole discount. So
yeah, it's kind of been interesting working on that. I've also been playing a fair bit of the other Star game that we're not supposed to mention because we're in Star Trek.
I'm just glad I found my joystick, so that way I didn't have to pay the absurd amount that joysticks are now costing.
Yeah, they're a bit pricey. I'll give you that.
Though apparently my joystick is missing a button by the default standard setting, so I can't do everything, but whatever. It does most things. It does what I need. Fly, turn, rotate,
The important stuff.
Yeah,
I gotcha. Shoot would definitely be important in that game. We're discussing Star Wars Squadrons briefly here. It's a new game out on console and PC. It is cross-platform. It's kind of a fun game. But so that's been my week, though. What about you?
My week was finding the joystick partially. Going through, I couldn't remember how many games require a joystick. Not many. How many games actually have good use of a joystick? Sadly, again, not many. And so it was still in a box, packed away from when I had moved years ago. But other than that, let's see here. D&D, more D&D.
You didn't kill anybody this time.
Preparing for D&D. Oh no, I created an alternate game for when people don't show up or not everyone shows up. So technically, there's yet another game I'm keeping in my brain. They're in the Shadowfell and playing around in the Shadowfell goodness stuff. So
that's fun. To answer your question, Darren, I still have not given Ark a try yet. I've heard a lot of good things about Ark. If my schedule ever frees up, or if I finish some of the console games I'm working on, I might give it a try. But I do not have Ark yet.
Ark is fun. I'm assuming it's Ark Survival Evolved.
Yes.
I've enjoyed that. I've built many bases, tamed many of dinosaurs, and created egg farms, and all of that stuff.
Well, we've discussed our week. Now let's talk about Star Trek's week. So this has been kind of a busy week in Star Trek, not just Star Trek Online, but Star Trek in general. Lower Decks finished their first season, and as I understand it, it was pretty explosive. I have not totally seen the first season yet, but it is a fun show. I'm kind of getting into it.
I may have the last episode left. I'm so used to things being streaming that they put out an entire season at once. I'm not used to having to go back and look for the next episode a week later.
The Netflix spoilage.
So, I think I have one more episode and then I am done. The unless the last episode was their I guess they would call movie episode. If that was the last episode, then I've seen it, and it was interesting and good.
Oh, before I forget,
The things you learned,
well,
or things you forgot about.
I guess things you learned. So there is a this last weekend they had a double experience and bonus mark weekend that did end today. Keep an eye out for those, though. I wanted to bring that up. Keep an eye out for those, especially the marks. If you're working on those reputations I mentioned earlier, those marks can really help. Wanted to put that out there before I forget. So, what did you learn, Grebog?
Well, honestly, this is from something you had told me that you had accidentally done, and then I asked if you did the setting or not, and you're like, no. And essentially, if you get a piece of gear that you don't want to lose accidentally or any otherwise, when you go into your inventory, you can right click on it, and in the menu there is a change protected status to on. So that helps prevent you from going no as it gets deleted.
Yep, and actually what I deleted was my phased waveform beacon here. It's gives you a button on your bar that can summon some NPC Herc ships to help you in combat. It's very handy, and I was going through a wild deleting spree, and I clicked on it by accident. So,
while
protected status is a good thing.
While stores and replicator, you can get it back with the recover or buy back tab, or like the retrieve. However, if you salvaged it, which if you're doing crafting, you might end up salvaging, there is no going back. It's salvaged.
Well, even if you sell it, there's a time frame on there, and the retrieve box only has a limited number. So if you go through and delete a whole bunch of stuff, you may kick it off of the number of boxes and not be able to retrieve it. So be careful with that. With the waveform beacon, that's a mission reward or episode reward. So in theory, I could run the mission again and get it back. At least I believe you can do it that way. But still, it was one of those things. That's a button I use on almost all my ships, all my characters. So it was like I clicked on it, deleted it, noticed it wasn't there, and was like, oh, hell, what did I just do?
Yeah, and as I'm kind of quickly going through like some of my core gear people are seeing, I'm essentially checking to see that it says change protected status to off, because that means it's currently on. I want to leave it that way. So that way my gear doesn't... like here. I need that to be on. And
so, back to the busy week in Star Trek. In Star Trek Online, we have the ongoing Widening Gyre event. This is going to reward you with a complete 4-piece space set that can help you create rifts and summon Elachi ships to help you in combat.
And if you can get it, it may not be a bad starter set to have. I mean, you can get an entire space set. So it's pretty nice to get a quick gear up for any ship that you have.
It does take 20 days of progress, and you can only earn one daily progress per day. You can do that by running the Synth Wave event or running the new mission that new episode they added to the game. 20 days earn you the space set. Now, they did say there's been some errors along with this event. The Synth Wave is bugged like crazy right now. A lot of people are experiencing frozen games where it just won't end and whatnot. Now, because of that, they did say that they were going to be extending the event past their original end day. To the best of my knowledge, they have not actually announced that yet. They should announce it tomorrow after the patch. Which hopefully will fix the synth wave, but we'll see. They already tried to patch it once and it didn't fix it, so we'll see what they come up with tomorrow.
There's been interesting bugs. Like I've had problems joining the TFO on some certain days, and essentially the fix I found for that was change your character and come back to the character you want to do it on, because for some reason it doesn't count you as eligible. Like somewhere along the line, it doesn't think you're eligible anymore, and that fixes it. So
if we have time at the end of today's episode, we might go ahead and run the synthwave to show it to you guys. But in essence, you're going to defend Mars from the synth rebellion. The goal is to beam up survivors from the surface of the planet and then deliver those to ships in orbit, which would be transports, frigates, battleships. And then if you run out of those, you can deliver leftover survivors to the starbase itself. Excuse me. Now, I will tell you this. We're talking about the bugs. If you are in the synthwave and it gets bugged, what you need to do is look around for a ship, usually a transport, that is frozen and not moving. And then the best thing to do is to get your entire team to move away from that ship and let the synths blow it up. Sure, you might lose a mark from losing an extra transport, but it will allow the mission to go forward. I also read that some teams have been leaving the safety area, letting themselves get blown up, and then the synths will go crazy and destroy all the NPC ships that are left, including any of them that are frozen. It's a way to keep going.
The synths win is what we're saying.
Yes, if it gets frozen. Doesn't always happen, but if it does, look for a frozen ship. The other thing that happened was the experimental upgrades. And this applies to any Tier 6 or Tier 5 upgrade ship. It adds a device slot, a universal console slot, and a starship trait slot, giving you a grand total of 6 if you've unlocked them through your starbase system. Your fleet system. Those we did some experimenting with those. I've actually got my ship upgraded, the ship I'm currently in. So I'll pull this up here. So you get the mastery tree, and then the experimental trait is down here. That's your space trait spot. You get your universal console slot over here on the right, and an extra device slot. So those are handy boost to any Tier 6 or Tier 5 upgrade ship. Grebog, you experimented with fleet ships with that.
So, if you read the FAQ, they already said that fleet ships, if you upgrade a fleet ship, if another character of yours picks up the exact same fleet ship, it would not upgrade it as well. Though they didn't, there were some questions whether if, let's say, my current captain has a fleet ship and one of my other captains has the exact same fleet ship and they're both readied at the same time and stuff like that, what would happen? Well, I set up one of my other captains with the same fleet ship I have on, well, which isn't the current ship I have out. And when you upgrade it, it does not upgrade it. It doesn't matter if they're both equipped and whatnot. Fleet ship is a once and done. It is not linked to any other captain's fleet ship. Though, yeah. I kind of expected that, so...
I have not messed with that yet. I was relying on your expertise, so there we go. Okay, so that covers this week in STO, I believe. I don't think I missed anything. Winding Guy or Synthwave. Yeah, I think we're good. So let's move on to our primary target. Now, I'll tell you guys straight up, from here on, this is going to be Grebog's episode. I have not been big on the crafting in the game, at least not until recently. And I'll show you some of the stuff that I've been doing as he talks. But I'm going to hand this over to Grebog.
So, research and development. If you've done it in the past, before it made its great massive overhaul, it is completely different. In my opinion, it is 10 times easier than it used to be. You no longer need certain aspects to craft stuff. The first thing you need to note is you'll see here on my screen, I have beams selected. It is at level 20. Now, I spent a lot of time leveling them up and whatnot, so that's why you see them at the various levels here. You'll notice, though, officer training and special projects have no levels, so those are just where they threw some other stuff and they didn't feel you needed to bother leveling them up. So yeah, the obviously for research and development, it's to make items and craft gear that you might need. If you go in, you can typically, like here, you can see on my screen, this has here says level 15 requirement to do a arc beam array, which typically is the wide angle, or well, the 360 omnidirectionals, and it's all drop down. You get to pick what type, whether you're anti-proton, disruptor, whatnot. And you can even change, well, the mark is pretty much, I believe it's based off of your character's level and might be some on your actual crafting skill. But when you go into, I guess we'll get to leveling these here. I guess I'm skipping around. I'm just all over the place. Since I'm already
Well, here,
into
let me-
crafting something, I'll just show what this looks like.
Let me help here for just a second, Grebog. So on my screen, I do not have a lot of crafting max. As a matter of fact, my highest on this character is 10. So I've queued up a bunch of these particular crafting here to boost it. And I'll show you this. So each one of these is going to add 6,000, which is not quite enough to level my beams, but it was enough to boost my ground weapons to level 5. So the way that works is, if you click on a category, scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see a 20-hour project here, just called Research Project, that gives 6,000 experience. And then you just begin it. If you are missing the required duty officers, you can find those in various places in the game, including the exchange, fleet resources, or there are places even on ESD where you can buy some duty officers if you need it. You can only have 3 equipped per project at a time, and then you can unlock more slots as you go. And each category has one of these 20-hour spots. So that's the quick way to level. And again, I have to thank Grebog for that. He introduced me to that faster system.
And something to note, you're going to want to get the schools up in the specific. So let's say if you primarily use beam weapons on your ships, you'll want to get your beam weapon, the beam school, up to level 15. Going past that is all on you. But once you get them to 15, you get a new trait.
Space trait.
Yeah, you get, well, it varies on whether it's a space trait or a ground trait, depending upon what the school is. So for ground weapons, it's obviously going to be a ground trait. But beams, cannons will give you, space traits. Shields will give you, it might give you one that is both. So
nice.
That is something to look for, and you can find them. Like I actually have, if I go into my traits here, I actually think I have the cannon one. Yep, beam training here is set up, and that is something I'm pretty sure that came from actually getting it from the beam weapons going to 15. And essentially what you see is it gives basically a bonus to weapon damage to beams, because you are really well skilled with your beam weapons. So eventually you'll want to get them all to 15 so you can unlock all the traits and stuff like that. Give yourself all the options, but I would focus the ones that are, the ones that you use the most. It does take some time to get there, but just keep plugging away at the research ones. At the bottom of every tree there is the research project, and it adds up. It'll and sometimes on R&D weekends they will give you a double XP for R&D. So those weekends definitely have things queued up. It'll really speed it up.
It's worth noting that on those, well, on any project, but on those leveling projects specifically, if you have a bunch of dilithium sitting around and you want to use it, you can use that Finish Now button. It uses 18,000 dilithium. You can do that with any project, and the cost will vary depending on what you're crafting. But you can always speed things up with that.
Okay, now to creating stuff. So I went in, I selected instead of the omnidirectional. Omnidirectional clearly is a Mark 12 weapon and up. The standard beam arrays you can actually make as a Mark II, or you can, this drop down lets you go all the way up to Mark 12. So you can choose a variety of things. Again, you still have all the different types. And I've heard some people, if you have an ultimate upgrade in your stash waiting to go, of just making a Mark II, hit it with the ultimate upgrade and it's a Mark 15, you didn't burn as many of the resources to craft it as you would have making a Mark 12. And it doesn't take as long to make a Mark II versus a Mark 12. By making a lower level one, you are typically more likely to get a very rare or rare and uncommon. That's another reason why, like quality wise, you could get a higher rarity. But if you're going to do the ultimate upgrade, that part technically doesn't matter. But if you notice here on this box, the Beam R&D skill, it'll have a recommended skill, your current skill, which is your level times 10. So like my level's 20, so times 10 makes it 200. I get a +5 from having this duty officer selected. And if you notice, I have other people, like I could put this person in, and they give me a +30. So, though I think they only grab the +5 by default because it's already 100% very rare. But in the catalyst, when you're making things, this essentially is another thing to boost the crafting skill level. And again, that all factors in on increasing the rarity. So you don't have to, let's see here. If I go click on this, I'm selecting something that's harder to make. So I don't only have this one guy who has a +15 for the slot, but if I put in a +50 skill and assign it to the slot, you'll notice that ultra rare went up to 40%, while very rare is only now 60%, and I can do that again. And the catalysts and stuff, yeah, we'll get to that. Let's see. Well, catalysts are helpful. They, like I said, they help you increase the rarity when you're crafting things. It will tell you down here how much experience you will gain from crafting the item. If you notice this, if I were to make this beam, omnidirectional beam, it's 12,000, which is more than a single research project, though it does take a lot of resources. And some of these are the more rare stuff that you have to pick up, or very rare, I guess, in this. So, but it also takes 20 hours. There are some items to note when you can craft. If you want to get the Aegis set, it is a crafted only set. It's a space set that has a shield, has deflector, and it has, I believe, engine. The hyper impulse engines. It's a 3-piece set. It's not a bad set to have. It used to be the go-to tank set if you were wanting to have a more tanky. If you want your ship to be more of a tank type, the Aegis set was used to be the one to go to.
It's still not a bad set.
You'll also notice that it requires specific duty officers to make stuff. So if I go in here to details, like apparently I have one, my duty officer, I know I have one because I made the hyper impulse engine. I have him on another project, so he's no longer, or she is no longer available, and yeah, sometimes you have to wait till everything's, ready for the next day. I'll get into the DOFs in just a minute. First, I'll cover how you get your resources. Now,
R&D packs.
There are R&D packs. You can buy them from the Zen store. You get them a lot from doing TFOs. You get resources from Missions, you get if you're doing a mission and there's like a little like red thing, you can go and do the mini game. It'll give you small amount of resources. Unfortunately, the amount of resources they give you for those everything that they put into missions nowadays, in my honest opinion, isn't worth going over and playing their little mini game. You get more resources from salvaging junk gear from the mission. You get more resources from doing TFOs and the boxes you get there. You can just and endeavors. When you complete endeavors, you'll get resources from doing the endeavors. The reward boxes from those. Great ways to get catalysts and all kinds of stuff. But everything will fall into the R&D tab of your inventory, and you can always hit sort and it will sort it out. It typically puts all of your upgrades at the end, and then just the flat resources are just all over the place. As you can see, I have thousands and thousands of resources of various types. I've been doing the R&D for a long time, so I'm sure Nikodas has quite a few resources himself. He just doesn't probably pay attention to it.
I've got a fair few.
But I would say right now the best way to get the resources is from salvaging the unwanted gear drops. When you're running around doing missions, pick them up and then just salvage them. Sometimes you might get something you might want to be able to sell on the exchange for money, but if you can't sell it, you might as well salvage it. Or if you're going to craft
salvage
stuff,
things.
So when you go in, I don't know if I have anything right now to salvage. Actually, I think I might have. So when you right click on any item that you don't want, in that window, instead of equip, salvage item is the second thing.
Okay.
If not all items are salvageable, mission rewards I do not think are. I don't think reputation reward, like if you make something from a reputation, those I believe are not salvageable. So not everything's salvageable, but all the random drops from blowing up ships and from the ground missions and shooting people and stuff, all the stuff that you pick up, that's all salvageable. So definitely a good way to get resources. And Admiralty missions, they give you a fair amount of resources as well. Let's see if I pull up the Admiralty. Essentially, duty officers keep paying you out for more stuff. If you look here, like says this mission is a map interior unexplored nebula, and it has this box. If you mouse over, it just says it's a special item, but it is a package of R&D materials, and it kind of gives you an example of what can be in there. So, Admiralty is a good way to do it. There are also duty officer missions that will give you resources. You essentially anymore do not have to go hunt for the resources in missions like, the little node things. I would say it's just way easier. Yes, I have a lot of stuff. I'm a hoarder. You haven't even seen my bank yet. But that's a lot of how you get all of the resources. Now, duty officers. There are special duty officers that work with R&D. Because like when you saw me here looking at this, I was going to craft something and now it says, and it said like there was no one available. Well, these typically, they have certain requirements. Like here, this guy is a fabrication engineer. So you do need special types of guys, duty officers, to do missions or do stuff. Like this one here, you're looking for one. It just says R&D Aegis, even though it's not doesn't tell you exactly what it's looking for. Trying to find that out, honestly, you have to typically search for it. Eventually, you're going to want 6 of them, especially for doing these type of research and development missions. And the way to try to look for some, a lot of them come from the DOF packs in the Zen store. And a lot of them come from the newer duty officer packs. So I think the Delta Alliance has some. I don't know that the Federation one does, or the fleet support. I would say probably the Gamma, Romulan, Legacy of Romulus, those probably do. I think a lot of them came in the Delta Alliance Duty Officer pack. So that is one option, though that costs money. Though it's not terrible, it's just... I don't know. I always look for ways to not spend money to do it. Because, yeah. If you are in a fleet, which Nikodas and I are, you can pick
Very
them
good
up.
Fleet.
Yeah. Very nice fleet. Doing well with our projects. But the different holdings that you contribute to, unlocking certain tiers will unlock certain more of these duty officers that have, very, help you out. K-13 has some. The Fleet Embassy has some. The Fleet Spire has some. All part of the duty officer. I honestly thought there should be some for the research lab, but I don't know that there are. There is also a mission called Locate Suitable World for Refugees. It's a DOF mission. When you are... Where is it? Not... I don't know if it'll show up on this one. It's going to be one of these in the current map type, or I think you might have a department head that will help you find some of them. But you basically, if you get one that's called Locate Suitable World for Refugees, you'll need some refugee duty officer people that you send out to a planet, and they will give you back essentially a chance at one of the duty officers that is great for R&D. Another option I don't see I have listed here. So these nebulas. If you notice, there are some nebulas that have this duty officer icon.
Sorry to interrupt there. Joe says we lost audio.
Lost audio. Sorry about that. I don't know what's killing the audio when that happens.
We're going to have to look into that between now and next Monday.
All right. So,
can you hear us?
Hopefully, yes. I thought I heard us on before I muted myself.
Let me ask. Can you hear us?
Are we live? Check.
Now nobody's responding.
Yeah. I'm not seeing this online. Let me reload this again.
I'm hearing us on the stream, but my guest in the house is not.
They might have to reload.
Yeah, because I had to reload the stream. So let me make that suggestion here.
Ah, the joys of technology.
Yeah, I had to close the stream and re-get it up, but it does seem to be working now.
Well, once everyone is back with us...
There's some ice cream.
Okay, we have one viewer. One person has reloaded their page.
There you have eggs.
Okay.
It should work once.
Yeah.
Okay, it should be working. If you guys can hear me, reloading the page should fix any freezing errors. It worked for me anyway.
All right. So, where was I? Getting duty officers. And I was talking about the duty officer mission. Locate suitable world for refugees, where you give away some refugees to get a duty officer, which has a chance of being one of the good ones for the R&D. I don't know what the probability of getting that one is, but it is one of the ways to get a duty officer. Another option is these nebulas. Certain nebulas give you special rare duty officers that you can't get anywhere else. There is a chain. There are, I think, roughly 10 missions, I think there's 6 to 10 missions, depending upon the nebula, and those will give you a duty officer you can't get anywhere else. And typically, this will be for places like, or for things like R&D. I know one of the better ones for R&D comes out of, I think it's out of the main, out of the beta quadrant, B-Tran cluster, I was thinking maybe, or I don't know. I'd have to search again. I know B-Tran was one of the ones I was working on that that chain.
Most of them in the beta quadrant will be for duty officers. A lot of the others, like the Gon Crawl Nebula and whatnot, are more for fighting and battle zones, that sort of stuff. But most of them in the blue outlined areas here should be for duty officers or crafting.
Well, if it has a, like here I have the Rollor Nebula highlighted. It has the duty officer icon to it. While there is another section of that same nebula that looks to have like a war zone part of it, the icon, if you go to that icon, it will give you a special duty officer mission. What comes out of the end of the chain depends on the nebula. But that is the way to get some of the rares without buying. Everything okay over there? You're popping.
I'm sorry, I'm watching the stream. I muted myself for a minute just so didn't hear the stream.
I don't know that we need to cover salvage. Salvage is, like I said, a great way. Yeah, I was like, I already covered the salvage. Great way to get resources.
Re-engineering would be a good one.
Re-engineering is a good one. So, in your inventory, you'll see the upgrade. That's the easiest way to get to the whole re-engineer upgrade thing. Now, if you have an item, let's see. Let me pull off one of my... Do I have any of them I want to re-engineer? Here, I'll just grab this one. One of my phaser beams. And when you bring the item in here, it will pop up this. You will need to salvage to be able to do re-engineering, because there is a salvage, essentially currency on top of the resources you get out of it. And so you can go through here and go, oh, hey, like this has crit damage times 3 and a damage times 1 on it. Well, maybe I don't want to have 3 crit damage on it. It does cost dilithium. It does cost 400 of the salvage per thing you unlock. So if I go through here and unlock all of them, you see, yeah. And when you do this, I'll hit here. It is random. It is completely random. It can go to the same thing it had just been at. It can go to something completely different. You are essentially gambling to try to get the stat that you want. But it is a way to take a weapon that has stats that you don't like and try to get the stats you do. And you can burn so many resources gambling away trying to get what you really want. Trust me. I'm just gonna leave it. Screw it. But
I've done a bit of re-engineering, but upgrading is my forte, because I've really been hitting that hard, especially with those universal tech upgrades that we got. So there's an experience counter when you go to upgrade an item. Each item has its own requirements. It's called technology points. Once full, then you progress the level of the item up to a maximum of 15. As you can see, I've got several 14 and 15 items here, but I still have a lot of 12s, so I got a long way to go. Still working on that. There is a set. Let me show you this. So let me unequip this. I'll go to upgrade. So there's 2 bars here. There's the technology points, and then there's chance of quality improvement. The tech upgrades tend to do the technology points, and then the accelerators, which are optional, tend to add to your quality improvement, in addition to extra technology points. So if you want to upgrade an item, you got to get tech upgrades and the accelerators. You get the universal tech upgrade from events. That's what I used last week to boost my phaser wide angle dual heavy straight to epic quality in tier 15. There are also omega particles that you can collect typically during the anniversary event to make an omega tech upgrade. Then the Romulan Admiralty Award can give you an universal tech upgrade. And then the crafting system. You can use the crafting system to create tech upgrades in the school related to the item that you want to upgrade. So like beams for beams, cannons for cannons, shields for shields.
Another great place from the tech upgrades, I think I forgot to put down the Phoenix prize boxes.
Yes.
If you don't get things, like if you don't get a coupon high enough rarity for something you want, always take it down to the bottom level. You get more and more of them. So like a rare becomes like 2 of the uncommons or whatever. But then you can turn it into upgrade tokens, which don't cost dilithium.
It's important to note that, for example, the beam weapons tech upgrade can be used on both beam arrays and beam banks, but would not be usable on a cannon, for example. Consoles are also not all upgraded by the same type from which you craft. Engineering consoles require an engineering tech upgrade. Science consoles require a science tech upgrade. Tactical consoles are a little different. Being that if it is a beam console, it will then require a beam upgrade or a universal upgrade. But if the console does not specify, then it should be usable with more options there. And it will tell you in game when you pop it into that upgrade box what you're going to need. The R&D crafted text upgrades will all require dilithium when you use them to upgrade, but a lot of the universal ones don't, and the Omega, I'm tongue-tied here, and the Omega upgrades are all free. So if you want to boost something without that dilithium cost, you're going to look for those universal or the Omega. The boosters, as I mentioned, improve the quality chance. And then the technology points are what you use to increase your level. So you're looking, the accelerators, there's a couple different types there. All right, sorry, Grebog, I kind of stole the limelight from you for a second.
That's fine. Yeah, there's the two different types. One does the points and one does the rarity, essentially. Which when you're in the upgrade system, you'll see there's two bars. You got a technology point bar and a rarity chance bar. And yeah. Once you get to the max level, which is 15 right now, mark 15, you don't get, like, once the tech points is maxed out, you just are increasing essentially the rarity bar. So if you don't have it as an epic, then that's the way you get it to epic.
And that's pretty much the crafting system in a nutshell. If we learn any additional tricks, we will, of course, share them with you at a later time. There is, however, another crafting system in the game. And this system has been in the game since launch. Now, they don't add to it like they used to, but you can still use this to get some special items. These items go into your device slot on your character, not on your starship, but on your character, and they are reusable items. And what we're talking about here are Tribbles.
I'm trying to see if I can get to a room with my Tribbles.
I've got a few. Every character that I take on an away team, be it my captain or my bridge officers, will carry a Tribble. Different Tribbles give you different bonuses, and there's a whole list of these guys. When the system was first introduced, it kind of came along as a mini game, the way they presented it. So you would collect common Tribbles, and then you would have to go collect certain foods, and then just leave the two in your inventory. Eventually, the food would disappear, and you would have a new Tribble. And you would use this over and over again to breed Tribbles that would give you different bonuses in game. The original goal, was to craft a Rivera Tribble, which gave a 1% across-the-board boost to your damage, your resistance, and your health regeneration. You can still do that. You can still use the Tribble breeding system to get that Rivera. However, it has now also been put into the Zen store. So if you don't want to play the mini game, I believe it's 300 Zen to just outright buy the Rivera Tribble. Which is this one, listed as the Golden Tribble in the Z store. I've already purchased it, or I got it on a promotion. That's why it still shows as 300 Zen for me, but it's this Golden Tribble. But if you wanted to play the breeding game, you could certainly do that. Now, over time, they have introduced bunches of more Tribbles. You can get them from the Phoenix store. You can buy them from the Zen store. Sometimes special events will give them to you as legacy unlocks. Sometimes the beta test, if they have you beta test for a new expansion, they will give a Tribble as a reward for the beta test. So there's all kinds of ways to give them. However, in my personal opinion, the best Tribble is this one I've got right here, the Radan Tribble. It gives a 2.5% bonus damage and 2.5% maximum shield. It also happens to give you 5 dilithium every time you use it, which is once per hour. The buff lasts for an hour. I can put it that way. You can actually activate it more often than that, but the buff lasts for an hour, and you only get the dilithium once per hour.
I have one. It looks like a Tribble, but it's called a gambling device. So I don't know that it's technically a Tribble, but
There's some weird ones out there though, and there's also a cannibal Tribble. So you can
Yep.
find a Tribble in the game that will eat other Tribbles. Be careful with that if you have a rare one that you don't want to get rid of.
I have some. Oh, I think this one I got from feeding it some white. Gamma
I
Quadrant.
have one. Yeah, that's if you have white and a Tribble, it will eat that, and you'll get the Gamma Quadrant. The Cryo Tribble, which I highlighted here, you can get from some ice tubers that you get in the hidden mission Cold Call, which puts you up against the brain. And then you can breed these Cryo Tribbles, or you can sometimes find them on the exchange. They tend to be fairly inexpensive. I've actually got a few up on the exchange right now for 10,000 EC each. Although sometimes they go for less than that too. So if you want one of those Cryo Tribbles, you can see here they give you +2 for all damage resistance and a +5 cold damage resistance.
And this is why you will see some of my when I go through my officers that they have Tribbles or they have food, and that's because I was trying to prevent Tribbles from eating the food in my bags. If I don't use the bridge officer much, sometimes I just stuff them full of Tribbles, and that was that.
They will also eat, like if you store them in the bank with food, they will also eat food out of the bank. So yes, you need to watch your Tribbles if you're going to start collecting them. Now, like I said, this system, the Tribble breeding minigame is not as useful because a lot of them you can just get from special events or from the Z store. But if you want to give it a try, there are charts that you can find online that detail exactly what you need in order to breed them. And again, the ultimate one from the breeding system is the Rivera.
I will put, when I put this up onto YouTube, I will put a link to the STO Wiki. Has a very nice Tribble breeding chart. And my best tip when you're breeding Tribbles is whatever Tribble you're going for, make sure you only have that food and that Tribble in either your bank or your inventory, whichever way you're doing it. There should be no other Tribbles or no other foods in that inventory space, whether it be your personal inventory or your bank's inventory, because that's the only way I've been able to control what Tribble ate what.
That can, yeah, and if they eat the wrong thing, it can get rather annoying too, because then you got to start all over again.
Or the wrong Tribble eats the wrong thing.
Yeah. Because then you won't get the progress you want towards that Rivera. It was a challenging thing when it first came out.
It's not hard. It's just you gotta be mindful of where you're putting stuff. I think I typically had used my bank as the breeding spot for the fact that I end up typically, when you go on missions, you end up randomly picking up food. And so if you're trying to breed a specific Tribble, they will eat all the food that you pick up as you're doing missions, which gets very annoying. You thought you picked up food. You look at your inventory later. No, you have a Tribble full. Yeah.
Inventory full of Tribbles.
Yeah.
I think that covers crafting and the Tribbles. You got anything else you need to discuss with our viewers there, Grebog?
I think that covers pretty much everything that we so far had planned.
As always, if you have any questions, you can email us at fleetactionreport@gmail.com. Look us up on Facebook, or you can make comments on our YouTube channel. And you can find those just by doing a search on the various platforms for Fleet Action Report.
I guess I have one note.
Oh, go for it.
Since we're sitting here at Memory Alpha, some of you probably have no recollection on why this would be important to an R&D episode. those that have been playing the game for quite a while probably remember having to travel to Memory Alpha to do all of your R&D, because that was where all the R&D consoles were, because you had to go to a specific console to basically do all your crafting. Fortunately, you no longer have all that. We just came here as kind of a, in honor of the R&D and where it once was.
You used to be able to beam down, and it was like a science building that you could walk through and go to different places to do your crafting. We came here hoping that you could still beam down and at least visit the area, even if you didn't need to. Sadly, that does not appear to be possible. But it was fun to come out here nevertheless and kind of revisit those old memories. So, Memory Alpha. All right, so next week we're planning on going over some basic features of the game. And what I mean by basic features would be like general options, the chat interface, maybe some keybinds, and a few other things. So we're looking at those basic features next week. I think that's all I got, Grebog.
I think that's everything. We had our hiccup in the middle, like when it's normally going to happen, probably.
We're going to have to look at that, see if we can get that fixed somehow.
I don't know what the problem is there.
I'll do some research, see what I can come up with. All right, guys. Well, we ran out of time, so no time during the episode to run that TFO. However, Grebog and I still need to run that. So after we end the stream, we will pop up a new stream, just kind of showing off that TFO. Nothing official, but if you wanted to see us run through it, you're welcome to revisit or stick around. Other than that, as usual, I will leave you with the words of the immortal John Delancey as Q. See you out there.
Live long and prosper.